Kicking into turn 10, and I had to check to make sure nobody comes in on turn 10. The next turn, anybody comes in as 11, I put a reminder down. First country is basically nothing. The Basques split their points with the Visigoths. Hispano-Romans are kind of in an interesting position. I'm spreading out for points on a victory point turn. Why? Well, there's nothing really threatening this part of Spain. For production points, I'm actually not getting a lot of victory points off of this positioning, which is a little weird, but I'm just not expecting a whole hell of a lot to happen. The Visigoths could press me and try to get me to submit, and that could cause some real problems, but I don't expect that they will. They have that need to move north, and that's what? Turn 12. And then, so they can't devote too much of their force down hunting things like Cadiz. And the Byzantines look like they're busy over on this side. I'm not terribly worried about their points here. And there's really nothing else that can threaten me. There will be soon. To touch on the, hey, you're a submitted nation like the Sueve or the Basques. The way this game handles it is a little different from how Britannia and I think most of the games in the line handle it. Britannia itself definitely has this, which is if you submit, you get to reproduce fully if the nation you submitted to wishes you to. Now that seems a little weird, but it's like, usually having submitted nations grow is a good thing because they're expanding and taking territories that you want points for. And you can kind of hold over their head what they do, what areas they're going to expand to. Yeah, I'll let you grow if you take Strathclyde this turn, you know. That kind of negotiation isn't here. It's split half and half. That also makes sense. It gives more power to the controlling nation. But I feel like it gives a little less cooperation, which might have actually been very helpful here with the Sueve. Instead, they're just going to be parking on territories that I don't necessarily want them in. I'm not sure how much of an answer there would be to it the way things are filled out. There's one other difference, which is the submitted nation is allowed to travel through their owner in this game. That's not the case in Britannia. They're stuck in their little sections, which feels a little more correct to me if you're looking at like general Roman submissions and whatnot. If territories were divided, the Romans really had to kind of go out of their way to say, yes, you can have more territory. Goths get points per areas. Trying to force the Hispano-Romans to submit might be a decent use of points, but I also get points for killing off Byzantines. The Byzantines are kind of my threat right now. They're the ones attacking my castles, which is what I really care about. So I'm trying to reduce them. Annoying trade-offs where the Franks had to attack something. I don't want to take Visigoth castles. I took the Visigoth Barcelona. I get better production out of it. But I should have pulled out of it with the Visigoths if I was going to do that. Ended up killing a unit. A common problem when you've got nations that are kind of colliding a little bit. Franks didn't get any points this turn. The Visigoths rebuilt their castle, killing off a unit for that because it's a point turn. And they scored pretty well, 26.5. That's enough to get them into the positive range. They don't have much more coming. Turn 11, they get nothing. Turn 12, they get nothing. All they get is kill points for Franks, Byzantines, and, well, Muslim units, which will be the last turn of the game if I can afford to. But yeah, I can kind of go War Bunny at this point because I got my score. Now, this is still not the average that they get, supposedly. The average is 51. I'm 2 points up, so I'm at 48, you know. Did I miss stuff? Yeah, you know, there's about 4 points more that I could have maybe gotten by getting all of Spain into my hands. So I could get close. You know, that 51 is not an unreasonable target, it seems. Of course, everybody's less afraid of the Visigoths because I know that they're not as potent as they seem with all their counters and everything. But I guess the real point is they could fizzle pretty heavily in terms of point score. They could not greatly exceed their point score. That's where I don't understand these kind of expected points things. Anyway, we keep going. Let's take a look at what other people scored. So the Franks couldn't get anything because they're disallowed. Sueve and Basques both submitted. Sueve got 4 points, which isn't bad given that you're submitted. Hispano-Romans only got 2. The Byzantines came and boned them for, I don't know, they could have boned them or they could have boned the Visigoths. And again, given the choice, well, the Visigoths are shitty. Well, the Hispano-Romans are not doing well either. As you can see, they're at -10. So maybe we should be more worried about the Visigoths than someone who's already collected up -24 and is struggling with one of their remaining countries. And they have Castile, which we'll see. 5 points for the Byzantines. They're at -6. They might last on for a while here. They might break their points, but man, they have a hard job ahead of them. If the Visigoths are doing it all well, and if they build like the wall of castles here or whatever, it's just really tough to score points. And that's good because the Romans were in need of being hit. But here's the thing. When you're playing the fixed variant, where you know what nations someone else controls, if someone's doing well, like the Romans seem to be, and again, the Umayyad might do just as well. If someone's doing well, you know what other nations they have, and you can build a wall like this to deal with that. Here, the wall was built for, you know, personal value more than anything else. The Visigoths get more points off of those territories than they would get off anything else. And it's likely to be there, but I guess the point is that I wasn't able to. Basically, the Byzantines come into the board seeing that this is here, and it affects the bidding on them. And anyone can bid on them, and they're just as lousy for everyone. So there's no way to target specific players really with their upcoming peoples, which I don't know how I feel about one way or the other. I mean, it doesn't really seem like a big deal either way. It's just a difference in the style of play. That'll put us to turn 11, where interesting stuff is about to happen. Let's get those bids set, I guess. We had a dispute about the term auction off. There's a specific variant for auction off where you use sealed bids instead of one after the other. Well, the designers make the same problem. In the auction off era, Badajoz may not be played together with Leon or Seville. Why? It's the standard not allowed together in any auction. And again, maybe the other thing with auction off was, again, not meant to specify the particular variant. I don't fucking know. I suspect this is an error. Otherwise, it's repetitive because that chart already rules it. Badajoz is just a mess. Okay, so the rules for it are they appear on turns 11 or 12. The Lusitania is supposed to turn into them. Well, there is no Lusitania. It's a 4 infantry minimum, and I did not catch that, which means the Lusitania player has lost 4 victory points that I didn't count on. So let's see, Lusitania, I'm going to just put a -4 here, and that drops this to 2. And that means 4 points off the guy who's the Umayyad. Little flower. So he's at -5.5. And I just, tracked things poorly. So that's -17. Lusitanians can often do okay. And they got wiped out this time. And that's what I'm talking about is hey, you can score a little over the expected values with a lot of these nations, but it's really hard to score as much over the expected value as almost nothing, which is what the Lusitanians essentially did. With the minimum in there, etc. You could even score negative, if you get wiped out right away. Okay, so here's the problem with this. Even if the Lusitanians are on the board, they submit to the Umayyad. If Lusitania submits to the Umayyad, Badajoz occurs during the Umayyad turn. What do? Stop and auction them then, or what? Let's keep going. But because over here it says they're auctioned off on turns 11 or 13. Okay. Badajoz then stays subjected until the end of turn 14. Otherwise, Lusitania is transformed to Badajoz at the end of turn 12. Okay. Badajoz gets 3 castles for free, one of them from Badajoz, and at least 2 others from Porto. The other 2 areas, gets 3 castles for free, one of them in Badajoz, and at least the 2 other areas, Porto and Alcantara. Units that are there must retreat or are removed, plus any area Lusitania held. Badajoz gets 1 infantry for each Lusitanian infantry to a minimum of 6 infantry. If Lusitania had less than 6, the excess may be placed. We've got a minimum of 4, which we paid the price for. I don't know when you bid this thing. So these are the 2 nations that are up for 11. Now, under the current circumstances, I guess it's going to be a turn 13 thing. So let's see if anyone's before that. I don't see a turn 12. So we're going to move this out to turn 13. And that's when we're going to bid Badajoz out. But man, what happens if they transit immediately when the Umayyad submit the Lusitanians? And here's the other thing. There's sort of this feeling that the must submits mean you'll get a submission when it's very easy not to, even when both players want it, because you have to fight a round of battle first. Okay, I think the transformation gives you all those castles and everything at the time. Who the hell knows? Anyway, I'm trying to figure out where to put the Umayyads, or trying to get their counters out of the counter tray more than anything else right now. So the Umayyad are kind of the Arabic version of the Visigoths in a sense here, in terms of how the rules handle them. They I believe do not have the capability to build castles. Oh yeah, they do. Is that true? Oh, they give the Visigoths the ability to build castles too, so I don't know. Of course, the Visigoths, it's fine. They give them the point value to do so. So maybe they can. I get a bunch of stuff at Africa or at sea or in combination, so I don't know, I gotta remember that. They're not all coming from Africa. That's helpful. I thought they always came from Africa. With a major invasion and religious zeal, looks like on turn 11 and 12, I have a goal to make it up to Narbonese Gaul and get beaten by Charles Martel. I'm allowed to move up to 5 units per game up there, and they're worth 4 points each. That's a pretty big bunch of points. The base bid, the base value for the country is 40 points. I'm right now at negative 35. It's not trivial to get up here, is the problem, but remember, I've got the capability to land at sea. Of course, there's a wall of castles in my way. I get 3 points for each knight that I kill. They don't exist yet. Lusitania can submit. Turn 12, I get an increase like I'm Roman. And I also get victory points, a special victory point turn, I guess, where I get points for however many castles I've taken. And then turn 13, things kind of change. I've got specific locations I want to be in. Then I get another kind of invasion. Al-Mansur. I'm able to recruit some Berbers. And the Berbers are a little tougher than other units. And I get specific values for taking stuff. And then it falls apart and turns into 4 Muslim provinces on turn 14 that'll be bid on turn 15. That's actually kind of like a Charlemagne scenario, the Grand Campaign scenario after Charlemagne in empires of the Middle Ages. But you don't have a lot of, it's fixed where things show up. Now, that sounds like a really tough row to hoe, except when Toledo falls to the Umayyad, the Visigoth castles become much, much weaker. And I think so. Now this is weird because they mention the Umayyads a couple sentences later as to they must still replace things. It's not clear to me whether or not the Visigoth castles just become completely weak or only weak to the Umayyads. Whenever Toledo falls to the Umayyad, the will to defend for all other castles, those surrender without combat if there are no infantry troops left. As long as infantry is left, the castles fight normally. The Umayyad must still sacrifice an army to rebuild the castle. If Toledo falls in the first combat phase of the Umayyad major invasion, the castles surrender in the second phase already. After turn 12, the remaining Visigoth castles are neutral and they fight normally. Castles still surrender to the Umayyad. What? I think it's just a special thing that only impacts the Umayyad. I don't understand what they mean by castles fight normally and then they still surrender to the Umayyad. It's just like, dude. And this is the problem of the game, of course. All right, this is turn 11. We're set to go, and we do not want to face this yet. The nations did minor preparations for the arrival of the Umayyads. The Visigoths picked off a Romano-British unit, a Byzantine unit up here, which actually opened up my castles to potential surrender during the follow-up attack for the Umayyads. Now, the Umayyads have no stacking restrictions. They have that religious zeal power and +1 to all their battles. Toledo is my most important place, but I am attacking other castles, and from the way I read this, the surrender capability doesn't happen until, after, these combats, the combats I'm committed to here, for example, and I think I got 2 pieces there to do that effectively. The combats I have committed to here are going to be against full-strength castles. They're not just going to surrender. But in the second round of combat, or maybe after a retreat or whatever, I will be able to take those castles very, very easily. And that's kind of a bad thing. I went all the way up to here. I'm not sure that makes sense. In fact, I'm sure that doesn't make sense. I'm trying to get to the Narbonese location quickly. Let me reorganize things. I'm thinking an attack on Cuenca might make more sense, because I can capture these 2 very easily. I want to be up in this area. That's the problem. And Cuenca is not really useful to me, so why don't I make this more important? I don't know why I'm in there with all those pieces. What about here? I could do a landing and make it into La Mancha, and that'll keep me some more forces available. Might end up pushing Cav through up here. I don't know. We'll see. I'm not good at figuring out the kind of complexities that are going on. But the key thing is the battle that happens at Toledo is not going to free up either of these for surrender at this point. One thing I was thinking of is with the Franks, they show up here. Roland shows up next turn. I was not aware of a Frankish incursion that far south at this point. And that's something that I guess, I mean, I can't imagine that the designer just made that up, right? More likely to omit a minor incursion than to make one up there. So I'm kind of curious what the story is behind that. And to what extent, Charlemagne directing, bringing his army down into Spain and Rosenval and all that, was actually an attempt to support a kinsman. I don't remember anything in the story that said that, but I'm not sure I'm all that, I don't think I read it all that hard or researched for it all that much. Okay, anyway, we'll chuck some dice and see what happens. Here's a quick snapshot of the first round of the Umayyads. I killed Roderick. He's not worth anything to me, I think. I don't see any points for him. He disappears when Toledo goes, so he was there defending Toledo, right? We swept in. We haven't taken all of the castles because it's more important for me to push forward than anything else at this point, because it's this turn and next turn that I have to get to Narbonensis, and I want to make the most of the grounds that I can take. Did take Toledo for whatever reason, I don't know. Even though it would be easier to backfill with units, maybe I don't want that either. Let's not limit our requirements. I don't have to actually take it to get the bonus. Now, what I also have to keep in mind, though, This turn, I don't get a lot of points for anything else. Next turn, I get points per castle. So I want to have as many of these castles as I can possibly get, which is probably all of them. That would be my guess. And then turn 13, I have a lot of places where I get points, but they're not a lot of points. This is my big points is coming in right now. This was repositioning and largely filling those castles out. I lost a couple of battles. Over here against the Hispano-Roman, I was defeated, and here did not get a great result, and they were able to retreat a unit, and I lost more units than they did. Down here, the Byzantines killed 2 of my cav. I killed a Byzantine unit, though, which aren't worth anything. The reason I'm interested in those... Oh, I know why I'm interested in the Byzantines. Because the Romans are doing apparently well. They did so well, and you can see the Sueve aren't doing badly here. I got to make that player start paying some points. Otherwise, maybe they won't need to bid on many things. And this may be the last chance to dig into their point base. Unfortunately, this is not a great start for the Umayyad. More deployed against getting to Narbonensis and getting to the islands. Why are the islands important? Well, there are a couple of my 1-point areas, but also that idea of bagging the Byzantines and costing them that 6 points or whatever it is that I can take away at this point in the game. I think that's the... No, I still got the Franks. Yeah, whatever. Going through a sort of stabilization process with all the other nations, just kind of surviving whatever. I have an extra unit. I started moving the Visigoths, and I realized we got some problems. I've got an extra unit, and I've got a leader. But the main thing is I'm trying to get 11 points up here, and I think I have a 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 because of Via counts in. So I'm safely going to be handing over to Castile without losing points. But now what I want to consider is what I can kill. I get 1 point per Muslim unit that I destroy, which most of them are not going to be trivial for me to hit. But I got like these guys, I got this, maybe this, and I can shift some forces around a little bit. Basically, I could do something like place this. Now, this is all fucked up, like all things Visigoth in this game, which may be why, you know, I walk away with these feelings that the Visigoths do horribly, because they are actually coming close enough to their points. Not by much, but like, I mean, they're going to generate positive points with that 5-point disadvantage. They could have done worse. They could have done better. But here I get Pelayo, who is a leader from Castile. Now, as far as I can tell, I can pump him down here and fight with him here. It doesn't hurt me if I get him killed. It would if I were playing Castile, but I'm not. Somebody else is. All I have to do is make sure I don't lose victory points for it, because I don't have many. I don't have any to gain for this turn. Next turn's a big turn, lots of bidding and all kind of changes going on, and might be this the break for this video, because it's sort of the switch. So this is sort of a transitional period between the barbarian. You have the Islamic invasion. Next turn is sort of when the empires start forming, but here's the problem. There's this stretching, because, or when when the kingdoms start forming in Spain, but only the Catholic ones. The Umayyad are still sort of a singular powerful bloc, and they break up after turn 14. I don't know, do I want to wait 2 more turns for that sort of stabilization of the Reconquista period? I just don't know. Anyway, there's a lot of weirdness here. First of all, the Pelayo, what the hell happens with him? Secondly, the transition requires 11 points. of infantry up there. As far as I can tell, they replace 8 infantry, 2 knights, and 1 castle, which is just weird. Like, normally you're exchanging like for like when the Romans turn into the Hispano-Romans. It's just their infantry that changes. You don't end up replacing their forts with anything or anything like that, but whatever. That's the best I can guess from it. There's no real description of what's going on. Got an interesting combination here. Wow, they don't say there when they get their points. From now on, income from areas from castles and subdued nations. But before I have that, I have an increase to 13 infantry, and I've taken enough losses. Yeah, this is not unusual, actually. 1, 2. That I can get like 11 more infantry on the board before I get my 3 infantry reinforcements from all these castles that I've got. So I get a big swoop of extra troops coming in. And I get to keep my leaders next turn. I actually get a leader every turn that I exist. Omeyyad managed to push a few units off, not their full point value. It was just a little too cluttered with Franks up there to get more than this up. I don't think there would have been a way, because I needed 4 units to cover, and then the rest went up. And I think that's what I managed. I knocked the Byzantines off the islands, which is a big deal. They're going to get shit points, but I didn't quite bag them. They survived in Granada, and I pulled back because the odds were not in my favor. That means the only points that I get this turn is 4 for each unit that moves to Narbonne. That's 3 units. That's going to be 12 victory points for the Omeyyad. This is, I think, turn 11. No, turn 12. Omeyyad, turn 12. Yeah. 12 points. 12 points out of 33 puts me at negative 23. I'm getting close to being on the board here. Shit. The points of the castles. I own 15 points of castles. So, yeah. That's 27 actually out of 35, which brings me down to negative 8, a much more palatable number to be looking at. And then next turn, I get more points for areas. I've got a fair amount of areas, and I've got them covered nicely with the castles. After that, weird shit happens in turn 14. We still haven't done the Franks yet, and I'll do them. But now the Franks get points for killing Muslim leaders. Tariq went off the board, so that he can't be points. He could have run up with those units. But Musa's still here. I could conceivably go for him. I'm going to get 1 extra Frank unit. I really don't have a lot of force here. On the other hand, I get the same, well, I get almost as many points. Yeah. I probably want to go for the leader here. Not sure. Let's see. Let's see what's going on. Is turn 12 special? Oh yeah, turn 12 is special. Neat. I forgot all about this. So I got Roland, 2 knights, and 3 infantry in Narbonne, and we're going to be able to do some damage now. Yeah. The effect was I wasn't able to hit hard enough on Musa. Stacking limitations come into play here, so that's part of it. I did take the castle in Tortosa, but 1 unit with Musa managed to survive. He can retreat. And it's only Roland who can't retreat, or his force. Not the Omeyyads. So we don't get the big 5-point bonus. We do get like 3 points for the castle. These are not worth anything. And I'll come back with the point accumulations for each player. I'll have my 8. They could have been killed. 2, 4, 6. I'm sorry, 11. 8, 9, 10, 11. I'm good there. So the Visigoths pulled in 2 points this turn. That should get them to a total of 4.5. Let's see if we got that right. 13.5, 21.5, 22, 48, 49, 50.5. Yeah. So that's 4.5 points there. Franks picked up 3 points. So 4.5 extra points for the Visigoth player. And he's now at negative 3.5. Not too bad. So now the Visigoths are a weird situation. Their pieces are essentially all going to be gone. But what's north up here is going to turn into Castile. I guess, again, that happens after bidding. But given that we've got a player who controls Castile, they'll get to pick their stuff for that. We've got a couple other countries coming in at the same time. If I recall correctly, Badajoz is going to be up for bidding. I think that's it. One of the problems, remember I said the Visigoths and someone else, maybe the Umayyad, had points on the back that tend to indicate that they could buy things that are worth more than 4 points each. Well, for Castile, they specifically say Castile can purchase knights and castles. And I think that's the case with the future countries that are capable of doing that. So I think that may just be a misprint, essentially, an artifact of, maybe an earlier design where they didn't have that restriction. It's not clear, but I think there's somewhere where they say that they cannot. Like maybe up here somewhere they say that they have castles but can't buy them or something. I don't know. Or somewhere else, like in the castles section of the rules. So I just don't know. Anyway, I'm trying to figure out where I want to put things, and that's kind of important based on, hey, what do I want to own as... So Villa Castilla is worth a lot to me. Well, I don't own that. Avia is worth a lot to me. That's probably a place where I want to have my castle. See why there's a 20-point difference here. 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. If Castile is able to do what they did historically in unifying Spain, they will end up with huge, huge quantities of points. We'll see how likely that is. I'm not sure. So, I mean, here's the thing. They could get knocked out still. But this is where they are at this point. And we have one more to bring in, which is Badajoz. The next one is turn 13. This is turn 13, isn't it? No, this is the end of turn 12. Hold on. Leon is supposed to come in this turn too, apparently. Did I miss something? Okay, it says here, Leon. Oh, appears at the end of turn 13. Okay, sure. So Badajoz, Lusitania would be transformed. Otherwise, Lusitania is transformed. We already paid the points for Lusitania. Badajoz gets 3 castles for free, 1 in Badajoz, and at least 2 others in Porto and Alcantara. Units that are there must retreat, plus any areas that Lusitania held. And then they get 1 infantry for each Lusitanian infantry. If Lusitania had less than 6 infantry, excess armies may be placed as per the normal rules. What the fuck? There are no normal rules. When you transfer over, you don't get anything. I don't know what the fuck they're talking about here. And this is, again, the problem with these rules. Plus, Badajoz is worth 28 points. And it's going to basically be 3 castles from what I can see. It is just a loser for whoever picks it up, I think. I think I've got it. So the actual infantry minimum was 4 infantry, and that's what we paid the victory points for. Badajoz gets 6 infantry minimum and can place those excess units. And given, that I have 3 locations and that's it, they'll probably be spread out to match stacking restrictions. My prior game, Badajoz, actually generated 38 points. They probably bid their minimum bid on it because they probably looked like shit. 28 is their base bid. Is that what I bid? I bid 23, so yeah, somebody bid minimum on it. The erasers here, they're not sure they particularly want it. Let's take a look at what Badajoz generates points on. And Castile actually came out a half point ahead last time too. Looks like I can get a lot of points here. I get points for killing Almohade. They're not here yet. That's the end of the game. I can submit to Omeyyad. Yeah, so that's a bit of a risk, as if the Omeyyad go after me. I am going to be Badajoz, Porto. Okay, so here they say gets Badajoz, Porto, Alcantara, and Lusitania. Oh, Lusitanian areas. Okay. So I will set up those forts to get an idea of where my points are going to be. So what do we get knocked into? Jesus. Badajoz, Porto, and Alcantara. Okay, Badajoz is here. And I don't know. They're not an actual player. Alcantara is here, no problem. Porto is here. We can withdraw into Lusitania with those, I guess. The Sueve are no longer submitted. Sorry. And the Basques are no longer submitted because the Visigoths are gone as an actual player. Now, somewhere I remembered something about Toledo falling, affecting this, but I couldn't find anything to it. And I don't know. I really don't know. And if I can't find something that I vaguely remember, I keep looking, but I looked as hard as I could, really, or as I could justify. Okay. I mean, I guess I'll value them as at least decent chance of making their points. We're going to be getting 2 in each area. And that means we have areas we probably desire. Alcantara, Badajoz, Salamanca, which should be pretty easy for me to get. So we're looking at 9 points there. Yeah, you know, I think they don't look unattractive. Now, of course, the problem is number of units. These guys are already at 5. These guys are at 4. Restrictions. The only restrictions I see under Badajoz are Leon and Seville, neither of which is in the game yet. So that's probably pretty safe. Notably, the Omeyyad are not in there, even though we get points for killing Almohade. No, we could submit to the Omeyyad. Know why we'd want to do that. There's not a lot of time to do so anyway. I guess if you convert from the Lusitanians a little earlier, the Omeyyad would be a little bit more powerful. Going on a bidding war, going up to 30, which is actually higher than a couple points higher than their expected value. Again, I don't know. I gave them kind of, I guess they're okay because they scored a lot last time and they look like they can make good points. The former Roman player are actually Byzantine, and Sueve is the one who was bidding against them, and yeah, drove it right through the roof. Anything else I need to do at this point? I doubt it. I can probably go to the bathroom. I know stuff comes in on 14, so I'll put that there. And I got to pay a lot of attention. This is a victory point turn, if I recall correctly, which is one advantage. They get a victory point turn right when they go. Of course, that doesn't give them much time to grow. But whatever. And they're going to get leaders on 14 and 15. Turn 13 is a victory point turn. The Basques standing still. Hispano-Romans standing still, but mainly I'm hoping to get some possibility to do something at some point. Right now I don't generate any victory points off what I get, but I got to get down to like Cadiz, and that's a dangerous area. Right now I'm just on the board, basically. I can get points for picking off Muslim infantry, but I'm not in a good position to do that right now. So just stay alive, see whether I can ever get to a point where I'm not losing a ridiculous number of points off of the nation. I've thrown down some pieces to help me figure out where the Sueve are going to go. They've got a couple of pieces coming out and are probably going to attack something. Not sure what yet. Asturias is probably the most valuable place, but there's a couple Castilian knights up there. That's not exactly the easiest thing to beat up. Not to mention about the remaining Visigoths, they're not any player's control. They will not generate any points or anything. They're just there to fight. They don't disappear, but they also are not anything that produces income points, anything at all. They're just neutral, there to create some speed bumps. The Umayyad went and they spread out. They tried to kill the last Byzantines, failed again. Ran up, grabbed Barcelona, and launched an attack on Tortosa, which failed. Great. Then I run into the fucking Franks, and this is where this game, unlike most of the Britannia games, is filled with so many little fucking special cases. In this case, increase to 5 infantry and Narbonne before building new units. Okay, that's fine, I can deal with that. At the beginning of turn 13, the Franks get a castle in Barcelona if they hold it. Well, I didn't, and it got taken anyway. Just no awareness that this was coming. It's a problem in general with the Britannia-style games, which is you have to be aware of all these little special things, but there usually aren't that many. And in this game, I'm so frazzled by the fucking Visigoths and all the transformations coming that it's really easy to forget something or to not have noticed something that's happening with the Franks, who just seem like a normal little thing happening up here. And they're not. And I mean, is it terrible? Yeah, it is. A castle's a big thing. I'm not even sure I can build castles. I don't think I can. There's no stipulation that I can. If that stipulation means a damn thing, because Badajoz doesn't have it either here. So now I'm going to go look up whether or not you can buy castles, because I got enough points to build me a castle if that's what I desired. Infantry's probably a better deal. Conquering castles isn't trivial either. And I don't even know where the fuck to look in the rules. I mean, obviously I can look under castles or production. Okay, that's part of the combat rules for it. Purchased units. Fucking hell. And of course it's not there, but there's somewhere else where they call out the units, obviously. Here we go, description of units. Unmovable, attack and defend each hit if not destroyed, blah, blah, blah. First castles appear with the Visigoths, who may not purchase them but get them for free. Nations that can purchase castles: Umayyad, Castile, Leon, Navarre, Saragossa, Granada, Valencia, and Seville. Not Badajoz, not the Franks. Even though they both have the markers that indicate, whatever. But the Umayyad can, who I don't think it said I could. Yeah, I don't think it said I could there. And I mean, I'm just left with this. What the fuck, man? I knew this list was here, and it spells out, some shit and not others. And elsewhere, it spells out that people with knights and castles have that +4 on them somewhere. I don't fucking know where. See 2.1. Okay. Each nation can only buy it has pieces of. A player can voluntarily lose. Yeah, okay. And only up to a given number if his limit is reached. Now we have a little 1 subscript here, which I think was dealt with somewhere else. It's not on this page, of course. That would make too much fucking sense. Here we go. Most nations can say. Here's where the subscript points you to. Nowhere. Most nations can save up to 4 points of income. A nation with knight or castle units can save up to 8. Okay, so I think they can actually save more points even if they can't build them or something. Again, I don't fucking know. In the game, the nations start colliding more in terms of desires. So like Badajoz wanted Salamanca pretty badly, but Castile wanted it too and gets to go afterwards, so they knocked them out. Again, this kind of stuff you might not want to go for an area if you know somebody else wants it. You might not want to fight to get an area if you know somebody else wants it. And I think that's what I had to do. Castile's plays were just crazy in terms of like, they wanted a lot of stuff pretty badly, but it was really hard to get to it because they're kind of interspewed with the Sueve. Between Badajoz and the Castilians, they did some damage to the Sueve, but now they're down to like 3 areas. They can't submit to any of these powers, and in fact, I believe they transfer to Leon at the end of this turn. So, the only hope was to kill enough of their units. I don't know what their minimum is. Their max looks big. 6 infantry minimum, I probably have that. Just barely 4, 5, 6, yeah. So we'll be handing off a reasonable Leon, not a powerful one though, right? Yeah, looks like 6 pieces. After scoring Castile, let's take a look at what our points were for each of the countries. So Badajoz looks like it pulled in 12, which actually gets them onto the chart at -18. You'll notice there's a counter misprint here. They put the wrong sides on the wrong things. I don't know. Not much I can do about that. That kind of shit happens, but whatever. So yeah, I mean, they show up on the board and, they're not out below -20 anymore. Basques picked up 1 last point, or 1 more point. They pushed forward a little bit. Byzantines got a couple of points for Granada. They're still in the negative, but not too bad. Remember, this is the Roman player before, so he's got a lot of points built up. The Byzantines aren't going to hurt him much. Castile got 15 points, which, they owe 55, so they're deep in the negatives. The Franks got 12. Now I've got them noted here. I think I wrote in the wrong place. Shit, because they don't go away yet. So that's 16, 17, 18, 19. I've got them in the right place there. I just did not write the total, the bid in the right column. I don't know how I make that error. I see there's numbers and I fill it in. The Umayyad pulled 8. They're not done yet. They got another turn at least. on top of the 27 they had before. That puts them right at the 0 mark, which is kind of cool. And the Sueve pulled in 3. They're gaining points there. Again, this is the guy who played the Romans, has lots of points already in the bank. The Hispano-Romans were destroyed, and so their -10 came due. And that puts that player at -34. Yeah. He's got to do real well with those Castilians. He's got a 40-point hole right now to dig himself out of. But yeah, I mean, he's taken a fair number of his nations. I should probably make another count of that because we're going to have some new bidding and some transference at this point. Let me get that all set up. I counted up nations for everyone. Everyone's pretty close now, between 3 and 5, except for our teardrops who are at 2. They've been really stingy. Now, imagine you're in the case where you're in the last biddable nation, and you got to be careful. The last turn is weird. Last couple turns. If you're going into that with less than 4, you're potentially in a really serious problem. You do not want this to happen because someone can bid you to infinity, essentially. They can bid you so high, I mean, honestly, you must continue bidding. My stupid battery charger. This will not sit, and it's in every outlet I have. It just will not sit properly. It's a cheap thing, but very, very useful. So let's take a look at our nations that we have available. We have 2 coming into play right now. Navarre and Leon, in that order. Navarre is going to be replaced by the Basques. Now, if there were no Basques, they would get auctioned off later. They have no minimum for the Basques, so there's not going to be any penalty there, but they're going to show up there, and then they get a king and some additional troops coming in. This kind of surprised me. I expected the Basques to live forever because, they kind of still exist as a population, but they weren't really a political entity at certain points. So, okay. Leon, on the other hand, is going to be converted from the Sueve, and let's take a look at what we can see for the points. First of all, Navarre. Navarre has a minimum of has a base bid of 26, which means 21 is my bid. Point-wise, I get points for killing stuff. I got a couple of high point potential turns. Pampelune, Saragossa, in that area where Franks and Aragon are going to be playing. So, who knows, right? But I get a 3rd point of that, so that's kind of cool, or a 3rd round of that. That's why these go from 17 to 26, is the assumption that I'm going to be getting 9 points at that point in the game. Maybe, maybe not. Historically, how did I do in the last game that I actually recorded? I don't know. It's got to be this 21 here. It looks like I made 4. 4. Yeah, that kind of fits with my memory of Navarre kind of crapping out, at least sometimes. So they're a pretty iffy question. They cannot be played with Aragon or Saragossa, neither of which is coming into play yet. Saragossa comes in at turn 14. All kinds of nations come into play after turn 14. So it's kind of weird. Sometimes they say on turn, sometimes they say after turn, just to make things more pleasant. And Leon doesn't really impact that, so we'll think about Leon afterwards. But this looks like a really iffy one. This marker has moved over to here, which means it's the Visigoths who might get stuck with it. But they are playing the Franks. That seems like something Navarre wouldn't want to be near, but yeah, no penalty. The vagaries of the dice, these guys bid on it. These guys overbid. I had it as not particularly desirable for anyone. He was 50-50 on it, which is sort of the, hey, it's average. The reason being, I'm worried about how few things I have. And the fact that there's 2 extra units to begin with, hey, that's not too bad. A little questionable, he was definitely on the, I'm not sure I should take this, but I looked at the Franks and Navarre, and I'm like, you could kind of run both, I guess. Kinda. All right, let's take a look at Leon. Oh, and that killed the Basques off. I was wrong about their points. They didn't have 2.5, they had 1.5. Unless I misrecorded something, and of course, then I botched up my chart a little bit more. I shouldn't work in pen. I should know better. And it's moved here, and moves up here now, temporarily. As we look at Leon. So for Leon, first of all, they're going to convert into Sueve stuff. They start with their castles and everything right off. They get okay looking points, it looks like. A 24 bid. They're saying 9 more points. They're going to get this again on turn 21, basically. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe. Maybe. One thing is, the Reconquista makes things richer for the Catholic nations as you get into those last couple turns. So it's not entirely unreasonable. Let's take a look at what we did with Leon last time to see how bad it was. Now, that's a 10. That can't be right. What would the minimum bid be? The minimum bid would be 19. That looks like this, and it looks like I made about 36 points. Jesus. Well, they did well. Unlikely I'll hit that high, but, you know, they're starting at full power, and their points don't look terrible. They get points for killing stuff. Maybe, you know. All right. And who can they not be with? They cannot be with Castile or Badajoz, which knocks 2 players right out right away. The first 2 bidding players. Hey, good reason for me to have gone for Navarre. Didn't realize that. And guess who took him? The Roman player, who's been scoring well on everything. You know, what I'm not sure of is if I hadn't been able to meet minimums, I might not have been penalized. Are you always penalized if the transfer form fails? Or is it, it's not going to tell me on here. If the old player has less units, yeah, I'm not sure about that. It's not the case here, but that might change some of the bidding desires. If you're doing poorly with a country, you might be able to obviate some of the pain during the transition. Let me see if I can find that. Yeah. The average victory point sheet lists the average point the nation collects. Yeah, right. Yeah. Trying to remember where this would be. The auction? Scoring? Minimum number. Each player must control a minimum, no. Transformation. If the same player controls both nations in the transformation, no extra rules apply. Yeah. It's not based on the auction. It's based on on whether or not the player switches, which is an interesting factor. And that does modify what some people would be able to auction. I hope I haven't screwed that up and penalized somebody twice by giving them a point penalty as well as they took the weaker nation. Lusitania, this was one that went over. Lusitania indeed was the player who went over. No, was not the player who went over. But yeah, it's a factor to keep in mind. You might be willing to bid a little bit more. Badajoz is not, people were willing to bid on that. Being able to clear that -4 points is definitely a bonus to your potential to bid, and I should be taking that into account. All right, let me replace the Sueve with Leon and record the differences. In terms of expected points, which presumably the 4-player version is converted from, to, hey, what do you produce? What's your bonus over those expected points? What we've been seeing is again and again the world symbol, the Romans, have been being played by this guy. He has been playing largely his own stuff. He didn't get the Hispano-Romans, and instead he took the Byzantines, which ended up apparently an advantageous thing because the Hispano-Romans should already be marked off on the track as worth less than they were. But yeah, I mean, other than that, which they can do quite well. I've seen the Hispano-Romans do very well in the game. I mean, there's a fair amount of luck and a fair amount of, hey, who are we aiming for and whatnot? But yeah, this guy just keeps transferring legitimately. Now, he doesn't have everything, though. He did not take the Franks, for example, which is one. That's another one that he didn't take. And they're doing well as well. I mean, it's just a really a painful, the balancing is just so clearly incorrect that it just distresses me tremendously. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else we need to look at. We just finished turn 13. Anything special happening on turn 14? Badajoz is getting a leader. Abda Allah, Uzafar, this one. And here we're getting in El Mansour and an extra move. And Berbers. Oh, geez. Where the fuck did I hide my Berbers? There they are. I'm going to look up the rules on Berbers. I can recruit them. Don't know what the hell that means. It's probably on the back sheet. Let's see. El Mansour, okay. They receive the leader El Mansour, who can receive up to 3 Berbers. Each costs 2 victory points. Yeah, okay. They move with El Mansour, who has an extra move. They do not count towards stacking or population. They hit on a 7 to 10 regardless of terrain or opponent. They do get the +1 leader bonus and are hit only on a 9 or a 10 by any enemy unit, including knights, and then they disappear. 2 victory points is a lot. They have to stay with Al Mansour. But things that I can target are worth a lot of points. So, I don't know. Maybe worth it. Castile? Hey, nothing special for Castile this turn. Okay. I think we wait one more turn on this video because we've got the breakup of the Umayyads, and that will be the next really big periodic shift in the game. Because we're going to be seeing, let's see who comes in on 15. Saragossa, Seville, Valencia, Granada. Aragon's supposed to come in on turn 14. Really? Really? Say turn 15 here. Say turn 15 after turn 15 here. I don't know. I guess I'll have to look and see. I mean, like that. I mean, the Franks get points on turn 15. It looks to me the Franks stay around, and there was no mention in the other sheet anywhere. All right. Wiped out about half of the nations. They're just gone for good. The Byzantines are the first of the remaining nations in the sequence of play. And this is a pretty common thing. However, I look at them, and here's the problem. I have like 4 points left. Next turn, I think, is when Granada shows up, and they'll force me to retreat. After turn 14. This is just something I remember because of the Hispano-Romans. That means I may want to leave Granada and try to go someplace else. Now, the only place I can really go is La Mancha. The bonus for this is I get 2 points for each Muslim unit I kill. So that may just be the best I can do. For the rest of the game, I only get 1 point per area that I control, and I'm probably not going to control more than 1 or 2 areas ever. So this may be as many points as I can get, and it also helps save my ass. I have no yellow dice. Nope, I done been bagged. My victory points are a little weird. First of all, it doesn't spell out, hey, when this hell happens, but some of it, Pelayo, Christian castles, knights. I just score for killing these things. Great. Each conquered area, I have no idea what that means. That's not a defined term. So I go back here to look at it, and okay, this is the rules on those things, not the victory points that I gain. And then we just jump over to after turn 14, the Caliphate crumbles and the Umayyad transform to Seville. The following areas are not disputed by Saragossa, Valencia, or Granada, i.e. they remain with Seville. If they're Umayyad areas already. The Umayyad can purchase castles in addition to the ones they take over. Great. Hey, it actually states that. In the auction off, don't know what that means. I think they mean the standard auction rules, not the auction off variant, which is specifically defined and has nothing to do with this. Transformation from Umayyad to Seville, 12 infantry minimum, not counting castles. For each cavalry unit, half a victory point bonus. Okay. I don't know if that means cavalry count as 1.5 pieces, or if they're just a half-point bonus that I can get. But luckily, I have no cav left, so that's just great. I think it means each area I hold, I get these points. And I guess it means at the end of the turn, because it doesn't say in own turn. But again, I'm just making shit up here, man. I really am. How are the Umayyad doing? Well, they're at 0, so we don't have to worry that they're falling way behind. I do have to worry about that 12 infantry minimum, though. Although I do have a lot of production. I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11 points of production, which means I'll be getting 3 armies. I have my leader, Al-Mansur, and I have the ability to spend victory points on the Berbers. Now, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to have to make sure I don't lose a couple of units. And I also have to worry about the points that I'm gaining here. Christian castles and Palaio. Palaio's probably out of my reach, but there are castles that maybe I can destroy. I don't know if there are knights within reasonable reach. Could get to Saragossa maybe. Or, yeah. Important factor. Al Mansour has an extra move, and he grabs those Berbers and takes them with him. So they become maybe not such a bad thing if I buy them. I managed to pull 15 points in castles after spending, but 6 of that spent on the Berbers, destroying Villa, Saragossa, Tortosa. I exchanged a Berber for Tortosa. I think I'm allowed to do that. I don't know. Whatever. I'm not going to try to figure out if there's anything that prevents me. I've combed through these rules enough. I'm a little worried about what the minimum means, because if it's just in the territory Seville guarantees, I'm nowhere near. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to lose like 3 points from that. So I'm gaining like 6 points off the turn the way I count it. But that could be completely wrong. Like maybe you're required to keep a bunch of forces down here to make Seville bigger. It's, again, a muddled mess, as is most of this game, and it just gets worse as the game progresses. More and more muddled, less well-defined rules. Knights, on the other hand, come back and they swing on their own turn. Now that can score these points. They're getting a Muslim leader and a castle, 8 points. That's going to be huge in their favor. I don't want castles as the Franks, because the conversion to Aragon, it doesn't. It says at least 1 knight and 4 infantry. I'm going to have 2 knights and 2 infantry. I'm counting a knight as an infantry. Maybe I could count castles as well. I don't know. Again, it doesn't seem to me that I should be penalized for having saved a knight, an extra knight. But equally, I'm not sure I should be penalized for saving castles either, but there doesn't seem to be any consideration of the castles, so fuck that. Complicating everything is the weird interplay, like Cav are really good on attack, but not on defense and stuff like that. And that you only get points by on your own turn by killing things. Sometimes, most of the Britannia games, that's sort of a mixture. Most of them, it's usually you get points for killing things on your own turn, so whatever. But the interplay of these types of things makes it really kind of weird, where you take an area and then you can't keep it because the other guy is attacking you and he's going to potentially gain points off you or whatever. So we have some pushing back and forth. I think Castile is our last nation to go. 6 points with Castile, and I may reverse my decision. I chose to buy an infantry, but I may want a knight here because the points that I have coming up in turn 15, yeah, it looks like there's a lot of red things, which just means they're worth more than 1 in this case, because those are of interest. But Toledo is worth 5. Salamanca's worth 3. I really want to be pushing down more towards the center and may be willing to give up some of this crap, especially low income stuff. On the other hand, it is tough. I don't have a leader or anything, so I'm not going to be able to just plow down through mountains or whatever. I could, screen this and attack Salamanca or something. I guess I'm probably better off staying spread out, but I really would like to get that 5 points for Toledo. Now, next turn, I get nothing terribly special that allows me to go in there. So, again, I just don't know. The net effect we got is the Christian nations are awfully shaky right now. Leon's got a castle, but no troops that can easily move. Castile has lost its castle and is moving down to try to take this Toledo score They got their Salamanca. They did it by destroying Leonese forces. Navarre is here in Catalonia. Obviously, the Franks are Christian as well, and whatever. They're going to turn into Aragon right now. I have points to assemble, and let me make sure that I haven't missed anything, but I have some points for the Umayyad, and then we go on. The weird counting that I used, right? Where it's like, I can't tell whether or not it's supposed to be stuff that's devoted to Seville or not. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 infantry left. I had to have 12, that means I'm 5 off. I was at 19 points, counting the 15 minus 6 here, plus the territories I own. So 19 minus 5 means I gather 14 points for the Umayyad. And again, I don't know if this is right, but this is the end of the Umayyad, 3549, which means that I net 14 points with the Umayyad, which is pretty fucking good. And that is this flower thing, so I'm up to plus 10 total. That's what I'm going to read it as. I look at the oncoming nations and don't think that I'm charged for whatever's not Seville, which basically Seville is limited to, as far as I can see. They appear in the remaining Umayyad. The remaining Umayyad are transformed into Seville infantry. But it's the remaining Umayyad, see above, which I guess goes to here. My transformation is, they transfer to Seville. The following areas are not disputed by Saragossa, Valencia, or Granada, i.e. they remain with Seville if they are Umayyad areas already. Toledo, Seville, Cordova, Cadiz, and Sierra Morena. And now we can purchase castles. They mentioned that here. The transformation from Umayyad to Seville has a minimum of 12 infantry, not counting castles, if the old player has less units. But, you know, I mean, yeah, I do, and we know that, but it looks to me like we're talking about Toledo, Seville, Cordova, Cadiz, and Sierra Morena. In this. That looks like it's all that is Seville. Well, let's try to figure out what the hell is going to happen, but I'm really kind of lost, you know, as I always am when I play this game. Take that off and return these to their proper owners. Not that the Franks are going to have their existence for very long. The first of these to be auctioned off, and we're officially in turn 15. I think turn 16 we get the Aragonese, so we'll put that there. Sueve don't exist anymore. What the hell? Yeah. And Umayyad don't exist. We'll close those out a little later. Okay, so the first thing to be bid is Saragossa. Appears after turn 14, can choose up to 6 areas out of, all right, we'll look at them. Huesca, Cataluyid, yeah, right? Castellon, Tortosa, Segovia, Via Castilla, Avia. Via Castilla, Avia. I should be using blue ones. They're easier to see, and I've got more of them available. Avia, Saragossa, and Cuenca. And we're going to see the problem in a moment. Saragossa and Cuenca. But only if Umayyad are occupied or empty. Okay? All right, well, there's 3. Umayyad armies in these areas are removed. If there are less than 2 areas, Saragossa gets Castellon and or Cuenca to a minimum of 2 areas. Now, I'm going to get 12 Saragossan infantry without stacking our population limit to begin with, 3 castles, and can take over castles for free, maximum of 3. I guess that sounds like I could have up to 6 castles, but maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, I got 3 areas and a bunch of units. Saragossa only has 4 castles total. So, by virtue of, well, they can't get 6, which is what it sounds like they can get. Maybe they mean they can they get 3 castles and those can be takeovers or not. This is pretty goofy, but whatever. Let's take a look at what Saragossa's bids are. They've got a bid of 14. That's pretty fucking low. They can't be Castile, Navarre, or Aragon. Castile, Navarre. I don't know where the eraser's supposed to be. I don't think it's there. I think it's up here at least. Can't keep track of that shit. I don't know how much it matters. So yeah, so these 3 players could become them. The Umayyad are gone, but I'm going to keep them up because there might be some value to this. And what do we get for points? Well, it can last the whole game, and it looks like we have 2 or 3 victory point periods where we could get maybe 6, 8 points per time. Who knows? Of course, the last one's going to be particularly painful. I think they're not a bad nation. What did we do last time? Well, one of the problems is they're not all that big, so they could be destroyed. Saragossa produced 14, which was what I bid. Minimum bid is 9. Not only did they call the other variant the auction off variant, they call this advanced variant auction off. The other one's variant auction off. Great. Way to go. What I was looking up is the order of bidding. I don't think you can do Seville before you do Valencia and Granada, because Seville gets the remainder. I seem to remember someplace where they handle this and talk about it. Order of play. There we go. The first nation to act as Carthage. No, that's an example, not an exception. Exceptions would be useful to call out that way. Shit. Yeah, here again, not enough information to explain, is it Seville that happens here? There we go. So the 15 are auctioned off Saragossa, Valencia, Granada, Seville. Yeah, because Seville cannot be understood until you see the others play out. Okay. So the next one up is Valencia. Now, Valencia, let's take a look at what its rules are. Cannot be with the Byzantines. Well, I'm not going to try to remember. It was this guy. Who had the Byzantines? If they're not in play anymore, you know, it doesn't really make sense. There's not a real penalty. El Cid and Granada, they cannot. play, which to me means anybody can play them. The Byzantines have been bagged. If you really want to bid on Valencia, you can. You no longer have a violation with them. So how will Valencia be set up? I say, as I pull their rather small stack up. Okay, Valencia gets a castle in Valencia, and they can take it over. Non-Umayyad units in Valencia must retreat. Okay. In addition, Valencia can choose 2 out of the islands, Denia, Cartagena, or La Mancha, but only if these were occupied by Umayyads. They all are. This is Umayyad rich area, or empty. Umayyad armies taken or removed. If there's a castle in one of these regions, they can take it over at the cost of an infantry. Valencia chooses its areas after Saragossa and before Granada. It gets 5 infantry that it can place without regard to population, stacking, whatever. So I can choose up to 3 areas total with Valencia. It looks like I'm pretty rich in terms of where I want to go. The points that I get, well, on turn 15, the islands are important, along with Valencia. On turn 19, not so much, but Valencia is vital, and I'm okay with that. And then that stays for turn 21. How many points can I expect to get? Well, looks like 6, because I can have 3 areas, but, you know, I got a turn to try to expand. I don't have a lot of stuff. What's Valencia considered worth? It's only worth 8. Well, that's a deal. I think that's a pretty good choice of countries. And I don't see anybody, you know. One of the things that's not kept in mind is, well, if I take this country, will it preclude me from a later country in terms of my die rolling and stuff? This is really like, I highly doubt that there are people who play this game seriously competitively, given the way, you know, the experience that I have with it. But if there were such, they would probably play it at that much higher level where they really have a view of what other countries are coming up, etc. There are probably people who play it more than I do nowadays. I played it only solo. I would never I would never like bring this to other people, I think, unless they were all gung-ho about, well, let's try that one, because maybe they want to play all the Britannia variants or something. But this one's so flawed and so damaged that, like, yeah, I don't think so. What did my points come up last time? I don't know if it even matters because it's such a random situation. It looks like they pulled, I'm seeing 4, but I've got a +6 in there from something. Maybe the last turn or something. I just didn't score it all. And I had a bid of 9. So that 8 bid is probably not too far from the truth, although I am going to start kind of maximal. Big thing to keep in mind, I may not want to take these valuable islands on my first move because I'm allowed other areas, Denia, Cartagena, that come with castles. Trading in for a castle seems like a good deal. You know? Little diamond Visigoth player picked up Valencia. Not a bad bid, 7, getting up there. And there were a lot of people who were available for it, so it's easier to get bid up. Next one, and then we get to, appears on turn 14 with a castle in Granada. If there is one, the player may take it over without sacrificing. Non-Umayyad units in Granada must retreat or be removed. In addition, it can choose up to 2 areas out of Cartagena, La Mancha, or Gibraltar. Cartagena could have already been given to the Valencians. The reason they didn't take it was I wanted the proximity with Valencia, and I only have 2 castles total. Looks to me like I only have 2 castles total with the Granada as well. Armies in the region are taken if there's a castle. Granada may take it over at the cost of an infantry. Choose its areas after Saragossa and Valencia. It gets 7 infantry. Everything again. And what does its point factor look like? Yeah, maybe a little weaker. Oh, I think we all get these points for killing all Mahades when they come in, you know, and whatnot. But 3 points for Granada, and everything else is kind of unimportant. And we get that, it looks like, for 3 turns, as opposed to here where the initial 2-point turn is a little weaker, but whatever. Granada's point bid is 8 as well as Valencia's. This is a little closer to where the Almohade come in, so it might be a little bit more dangerous. Let's see what we had last time. Looks like we bid 7 and got like 5 for it. It is a more dangerous bid, there's no question. What are its restrictions? Can't be Valencia and can't be Seville. Now Seville is the heartland of where like the next invasion happens. So. However, they're the big boy. In fact, I'm a little surprised Seville isn't a major player, but they don't generate all that many points. Of course, neither did Carthage. For 6 over to the player, the Arrow, whatever it is, who's playing Castile right now. And that moves this again. And now we're at the last of them, Seville. Now, Seville gets the remaining Umayyad areas, see above. The remaining areas are transformed into Seville infantry, cavalry, and castles as appropriate to a maximum of 12 non-castle units. As appropriate. I don't know what that means. Seville gets 5 victory points each if they conquer Badajoz, Valencia, or Granada and rebuild the castle there. They need not hold the area for their turn once they've conquered it. However, they can gain points only once for each area. On turn 16, they get some additional abilities. They can purchase additional castles. They cannot be placed with Badajoz, Castile, or Granada. Okay. Badajoz, Castile, and Granada. So there's 3 players in on this. And Seville is the big one of these. However, it's not worth a buttload of points, supposedly. Why not? First of all, we get points for killing stuff and we have more stuff to kill stuff with. We get points for the castles. This says turn 16 and 17 on here. It doesn't appear limited over on this side. I don't know what that's meant to be. But yeah, I mean, we'd want to take those out. This is the turn 15 stuff, end of 15, beginning of 15, stuff that we're, okay. Now Seville only wants castles, and Algarve does not have one yet. Which is the one that they get a full point for. That's going to be hard to do. That's a point I'm not going to get. Other than that, I mean, let's say I can get those 15 points, and then here I get some points. It doesn't look like there's a lot available to me. And this is, I'm going to have a lot of pieces to play with briefly, but I don't think I'm going to have a lot of points available. They claim it's a 25-point span. I'm a little leery of it. Umayyad penalty would have been greater if it only counted for civilian things, but again, I don't know. But I feel like Seville has gotten shafted here in a really bad way. First of all, the way I read it, they don't get any cav and probably never can. The cav can only happen if Umayyad cavalry survive. Okay. That means I don't have a whole hell of a lot of pieces. But I also only got 4 infantry. And out of that 12-point minimum, so there would be another 4 points allocated in problem, right? But is that fair? Is that reasonable? I don't know. It's like, how can I judge what Granada and Valencia and Saragossa are going to take? You know, that's some of the effect. And the Umayyad units in those spaces just disappear. So Seville is left with garbage. Now, luckily, they're left with one hell of an income-raising capacity, but they might be destroyed before they have a chance to do it. Anyway, with all those negatives, it's no big shock that the Diamond player got stuck with it. Good reason to take Granada, or what else is Seville disallowed? Well, Badajoz and Castile. But yeah, nobody really wanted this. It looks like such a... But before I deployed it, I thought, well, it looks like a loser, you know, but maybe I can make those points. Now it just looks horrible. Horrible. And we have the Almoradé coming on, who will drive it away. They come in on turn 18. And, you know, this is basically the area they hit. I got no idea. I mean, Seville is obviously coming out worse for this than they would, but I also don't feel like the Umayyad should have been penalized, you know, in particular for the Seville problem. Feel the same way about the Visigoths. You know, there's still Visigoth pieces on the board that, yes, I met my minimum there. There, it's obvious that I have to meet the minimum for Castile. Here, it's not at all obvious I have to meet it for Seville. And had I had to, well, I wouldn't have been able to collect some of the points that I did for the Umayyad. But, you know, what does that all mean? I mean, I don't know. And again, you know, that doesn't mean it's worth bidding for a wrecked Seville as the person who would be taking those penalties either necessarily. We shall see. They look like they've collected up a lot of plays. I better check and make sure nobody's over 8, because maybe they weren't allowed to take Seville. Fortunately, they were. I haven't put the marker down for Seville, have I? I don't know. Yeah, I did. It's at 20. Jesus. Oh, this does not look good. And for whatever it's worth, well, I did the count there. They have 6, which doesn't defeat that. Yeah, I don't remember what I was going to say. That may have been all I was going to say. And we're going into turn 15. Turn 16, something happens still? Jesus. Is it every damn turn? I don't think so. I think I pushed the turn 15 out. I think the next one's turn 18. No, turn 15 is Aragon, right? Because it's not right on here. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and that's actually a factor. So, like, the fact that I didn't create these castles, Aragon actually may have wanted them. The thing is, their big problem comes after them, so that's safe. I thought I had to meet my requirements this turn. I have a little bit of time to think about them, but I could end up, like, beaten up by something. What? And we still have Visigoths on the map because, no point in killing them unless you're getting good points for it, Unless you need that space. Screw it, man. Just leave them lying around. They're not doing any harm. Yeah. All right. We're going to send this one up because I can't think of what else to do. And yeah, this is a victory point turn for almost everyone. I don't know about everyone. Almost everyone.